No, because family's like most important in life.
Really? More money wouldn't help?
Is there a pill you can take to make you happy?
Yeah, I don't think they work.
Can government make people happy?
No.
What makes people happy? That's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
In the Declaration of Independence, this isn't the real one, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "We have the right to the pursuit of happiness." This was a new idea. For most of history, life was brutal and short. Happiness was not even a question. Survival was the question. Happiness might have been something like just seeing your kids live to become adults, or something that might happen to you in the afterlife. And since a king or his minions ordered you around, pursuing your own happiness just wasn't a question that came up for most people. But then came the revolution and the idea of individual freedom. Only then did more people start thinking that obtaining happiness here on earth might be possible. Now that radical idea has become almost an entitlement. Some people believe it's government's job not just to allow us to pursue happiness, but to create happiness. The British Prime Minister David Cameron said, "There's more to life than money, and it's time we focus not just on GDP, but GWB, general well-being." But is that something that government can do? This new book tries to answer that question. It's a collection of studies on happiness. It was put together by Philip Booth, an economist with London's Institute of Economic Affairs. George Mason University economist Chris Coyne is the author of one of the studies in that book. So, Philip, I'll start with you. Can government make people happy?
No, I really don't think governments can make people happy. Government must create a framework of individual freedom whereby individuals and families are free to pursue happiness. And there are several reasons for this, but one is that these decisions involve trade-offs. You know, for one person, working harder, working longer hours and saving in order to get a deposit on a house so he can have somewhere independent to live with his family might improve that family's well-being. For another person, spending more time with the family and less time at work might improve that family's well-being. These decisions are deeply personal and involve trade-offs which only individuals can take for themselves.
All right, let's break some of this down. It's not just your crazy government that's advocating this. This country of Bhutan has gotten all kinds of publicity by using something as gross national happiness instead of gross national product, and they get wonderful attention. New York Times says a new measure of well-being from a happy little kingdom. Bhutan, says Business Week, is the happiest country in Asia. Is there truth to that?
No, I really don't think it's a model that most Western societies would want to copy. And I find this whole happiness agenda really is a utilitarian agenda which takes us back to some of the ideas of the French Revolution, where it was believed that societies could somehow be designed to maximize the sum total of human happiness within those societies.
Chris,
and
I would
people's
think
freedom would be undermined as a result.
Chris, I would think it would make more sense to judge how happy a country's people are if more people wanted to go there. More people want to go to America than want to go to Bhutan, where you can get locked up for criticizing the government.
That's exactly right. I mean, the way to think about this, as Philip pointed out, is not that happiness is some predefined bundle that can be identified by government and then implemented through a set of well-designed policies. Instead, an alternative, and what I believe is the correct way to view happiness, is as a process of discovery, whereby you and I and Philip and all other individuals have the opportunity to figure out and experiment with what makes us happy, which of course changes over time. And as you rightfully point out, one indication of places, of institutional environments that make people happy is where they want to move to. People tend to want to move to places that make them better off, not worse off. So the fact that so many people want to come to the United States indicates that they at least perceive there is the opportunity to pursue what makes them happy and to figure that out.
And yet one study ranked the United States 23rd on the list of happy places. Bhutan was 8th. Let's break down some of the things that from this experimentation that we do know does make people happy. Money, what about that?
Based on the most recent research, we know that income, absolute income, is positively related with happiness or well-being, and that as income grows, it makes people better off and they report higher levels of well-being.
But the best data, as I can tell, shows that if you're miserably poor and you make more money, if you're worried about feeding your family and you make more money, that makes you happier. But at some point it flatlines. More money doesn't make rich people happier.
It doesn't quite flatline. It's true that if you're miserably poor, then increasing your income by a small amount can make you much happier. But again, this just leads to the conclusion that we should have a society where people are free to pursue the maximum range of employment opportunities, free to set up businesses, and a society which in general encourages prosperity. Very often we get perverse results of employment policies which are designed to promote well-being, and they do promote well-being possibly for those who have jobs, but they actually keep people out of jobs, which is stop the unemployed from getting on the employment ladder in the first place, which is the very worst thing that you want to do for their well-being.
And I would add not just employment, but purposeful work. I mean, even having control over your workplace. At Chrysler, they found that if they gave people more control on the assembly line, they were happier. So it's freedom to decide your own goals and move toward them.
That's right. Basically, increasing the range of choices open to people allows them to experiment and figure out what they like and what they don't like, and gives them a sense of purpose and control. And ultimately, that's a key contributor to human flourishing and well-being.
Talking about money, a free society means there will be inequality. And there's all this angst about income inequality now. One left-wing journalist writes, every model shows the most unequal societies are the least happy. And that's intuitive.
Well,
this
that's
is
wrong.
just a
Completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence that this is true in any of the academic literature. Even the staunchest proponents of government intervention to increase happiness admit that there's no relationship. But not only is this idea wrong, it's dangerous. And here's why. Shrinking incomes and making them close to some baselines so that we all have equal incomes is a surefire recipe to misery, to a lack of well-being. So this idea just isn't true, and it actually runs the risk of making people worse off by reducing not just their freedom, but their income and their ability to purchase things and experience things that make them better off.
Some people would say that government giving poor people stuff, pulling them out of poverty that way, would make them happier.
Well, interestingly, and this was a surprise to me when we commissioned this study, we discovered that, in fact, the bigger government was, the less happy societies tend to be. There is a direct relationship, stripping everything else out, between the government allowing people more freedom and well-being increasing. And in the United States, you've had enormous, unprecedented almost, increases in government spending in the last 10 years. And I'm quite sure that that has that led to a reduction in well-being in the United States. This is probably partly because people are less free to pursue their own aims and objectives and pursue prosperity themselves, but it's also probably because they feel a less of a sense of control over their own lives the more of their money that government spends.
And yet, countries keep moving in the other direction. Now France, the new likely to win socialist, wants to create maximum work laws. He thinks more leisure will make people happy.
Right. So there's these arguments for all of these government measures to basically impose constraints on people in order to maximize their well-being. By forcing people to work to a certain age or not to work to a certain age or to engage in certain behaviors, basically what government does is reduce the choice set that is available to us as individuals, which reduces our freedom. Our alternative allows people more choices. It allows them to choose what makes them happy. So if we view happiness as a discovery process of figuring out and experimenting with what you want and what you value, ultimately having more options is preferable to having less.
Well, thank you, Chris Coyne and Philip Booth. Coming up, we'll talk to the experts on how you can make yourself happier. Maybe move from here on the chart up to here.